Hello and welcome to The Winding Stairs. Tonight we have the privilege of having a good brother who is a he's a student of Masonry as well as the Illuminati, and I I think it's going to be a very exciting conversation. Thank you very much for joining us. Our brother is Brother Josef Wäges, and Brother Joseph just recently participated in the publication of a book titled The Secret School of Wisdom, The Authentic Rituals and Doctrine of the Illuminati. I'm sure that you have heard about the Illuminati, and there are a lot of misconceptions out there about what the Illuminati were and supposedly still are. And we're hoping to dispel some of these misconceptions and give you a glimpse at what the actual rituals and the actual organization of the Illuminati was. Brother Joseph, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Brother Juan. Thanks for having me on tonight.
It is my pleasure. Brother Joseph, we're interested in knowing a little bit more about the book, but first I want to get to know a little bit more about you. How long have you been studying Freemasonry and the Illuminati?
Well, for Freemasonry, I've been looking at it probably a little bit longer than the Illuminati. And the Freemasonry has always kind of captivated me. A bunch of guys, like all the way back in my family, have been Freemasons. In fact, this ring right there, that's my great grandfather's ring. And so we've been, people in my family have been Freemasons, and I didn't actually end up joining the lodge until about 3 years ago. And well, it was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I really got interested in the Illuminati, and I'd kind of always read into some different things about it. And one book that really inspired me was The Spectacles by Terry Melanson, and he did a really good job on that book. And it got me kind of looking at some different things like that. And then the next thing you know, I'm on this collecting spree, and I'm collecting all the primary source material, and I've got all the original printed books in German, probably in about a year. And then some of the rare stuff I found got me in touch with my friend Reinhard Martner, and through that relationship, we kind of got access to all the different papers and whatnot, and it allowed us to kind of sit back over the last 5 years and kind of compile this material together. And it's really tedious, really slow work, but it's important that we go slowly because that way the real message comes through in the text.
Excellent. And I understand that it perhaps is tedious, but was the majority of the research entertaining or enlightening? How would you describe having access to these primary sources was?
Well, I mean, it really kind of sets the whole thing apart. For instance, like in a lot of the original German text, there's a lot of like corruptions in it like that, where like in German they would use the word for enemies, but really they were talking about friends, and it really does make quite a bit of difference in the readability and the understanding of the passages. And it's kind of all throughout the things, and most of this material, it was written down as manuscript, right? So there's several variations of these texts, little nuances, but if you compare all the ones that exist, you can kind of see, okay, this is what they meant to say. And copyists, they make errors just like every day in your writing. You'll write something and you go back and read, and you're like, what was I thinking? But this is forever, though. that's the difference.
I completely understand, and I would imagine for something that people of today are looking with such scrutiny, some of these things that get lost in translation can cause a real problem for the image of an organization that has such mystery around it.
Oh, sure.
And you are officially within the process of the book. You were research and an editor. Is that correct?
Yeah, and so like the main thing I kind of did was do like a lot of the organizational work. I took all the original German sources. The methodology was we started with everything that was printed, and I went through and I transposed everything from all like the old printed text like that and distilled it down into text files. And from these text files, we were able to take these and compare them to all the different primary source materials. And if you want to look, get real specific about the primary sources, in the first part of the book, there's the notes, and it tells all the different manuscripts we used, the shelf marks, where they're at, and And so we took all these different variations, put them through, and then translated it. And then even after we translated it, we found other manuscripts to compare it to and further kind of refined it. So it's tedious, but it's so important that we do it this way.
I completely understand, and I understand that you had to do some traveling in order to have access to some of these primary sources, correct?
Oh yeah, and in fact, I'm going after Rob when I speak at the PSO conference in Paris this year. I'm going to go back to the Secret State Archives, and then we're going to go and check out some different things like that. So the search continues.
That's excellent. And in the process of studying this subject, and as you continue to uncover new things, things that are new to you in your research process, how has your opinion of the Order of the Illuminati changed since you began doing your research?
Well, I approach it from a neutral perspective, right? Because if you start off with texts like Proofs of a Conspiracy or Memoirs on the History of Jacobin by the Abbé Barruel, if you start with those pieces, each one of them has like their own little their bent on the materials that are published, right? And like they did pretty good research. Barruel more so than John Robeson, but you approach this thing with no opinion or anything like that, and just kind of read it for what it is. And so you start with their baselines, obviously, because for the last 200-something years, the only thing you could ever read about the Illuminati in English was from Barruel and Robeson, and then there was another guy, Seth Payson, and he came along and he did the same thing, but he lifted from these guys, so it wasn't really anything original in his field. And so I approached it from that, and then when I started getting a hold of some of the German primary sources, I started reading those, and there's wide variations in what they were translating. Like the French version of Abbé Barruel's stuff is really good, but the English wasn't done until I think it's 1798 by this guy named Clifton, I think was his name, and he has some corrupt translation in the original French. So the original French was closer to the German, and then when they did the English from the French, it got even worse. And it was the same thing with Robeson's book. He had someone translate the German for him, but when he put it in the book, the way he was writing the names of stuff, it's pretty horrible. So they kind of give you a clue that there's something not quite right there. And so when you compare the information to the actual primary sources in the native language, that you really come to the conclusion that some of this, or actually really a lot of the misunderstandings, come from like variations in translation. But also there's a lot of people's opinions that are put in these books. It's not just when they put out these books, it wasn't just the information, it was their opinion about what happened and how it tied into things. And so one of the things that both of them tied together was the Illuminati and the French Revolution. And really those two didn't go together at all. But for whatever reason, their like experience at the time, they kind of lumped it together. And so like if you look at Robeson, they had this they had these like little Jacobin type clubs over there in Ireland and in Scotland. And a lot of those guys were, arrested and whatnot during the heyday of the French Revolution. So that's why they had like this paranoia, because these Jacobin clubs spread over, and they came to the conclusion, well, this must be the Illuminati. Look, it's right here. But it wasn't. It was just their opinion.
Well, and it sounds very familiar to some of the problems that we've had in our fraternity, that people share something that's just an opinion or an interpretation of something without necessarily substantiating it, and even when things are clarified later on, it doesn't matter. Somebody already tainted the waters, and introduced an element that it's just not part of it. So that can cause a lot of problems, for sure. Now, one thing that I wanted to speak about, I know we have a lot of people that follow the winding stairs and follow the progress that you do in your research. They're interested in knowing both what the history of the Illuminati is, but also how the current beliefs of what the Illuminati is actually about, how those might be correct or incorrect. So I was hoping that we could go through a series of what are popular misconceptions about what the Illuminati actually was. So we've compiled a list of those, and I wanted to go through those one by one.
Sure.
So, what's the first misconception, in your opinion, about the Illuminati?
Okay. Well, I guess there's this overarching worldview that they were some kind of like evil, nefarious organization, and it's tied together today. Some people say it's global governance. Other people say it's influence in like in the hip hop music scenes and all these different weird ideas, or that the Illuminati they took over Freemasons. All these it's bizarre, but that's what they believe like that. But nothing can be true. The truth is that the Illuminati really haven't existed 1792 and absorbed back into Masonry. It was the other way around. What they were doing was totally irregular. They had their own little from the Masonic system. They had their own little Grand Lodge that was chartering lodges, and they just gave themselves the authority to start doing it. So you know how well probably went over, and that's what happened there.
Huh. And I lost you there for a second. Uh, in regards to the misconception of the Illuminati being an evil organization, how would you say that it is or it isn't?
Okay, well, it's not an evil organization because uh, there's what they were trying to do is they were trying to restore mankind to its exalted state, to raise him up into virtue, and it was to be accomplished through a strict moral regimen. And basically, like the moral regimen, follow the golden rule was do to others as you would have them do unto you. But also kind of respecting everyone like that. And they also had the belief that mankind was capable of self-governance, that we should have public education, that everyone should be educated. It doesn't sound like very evil things to me. And what they were trying to do was to raise humanity up through the Enlightenment, through a proper education and application of morality in their daily lives. And that's what they were trying to inculcate. So the whole idea of this modern notion that they're this evil, nefarious global organization. Well, if you look at the true spirit of the now deceased Illuminati, it just doesn't square. It's two totally different concepts.
Now, in your answer, you mentioned the now deceased Illuminati. For those who might not know, the there is a measured lifetime for this organization. How does that time frame look like? We're talking about that they ended close to what time?
Okay, well, we'll just briefly touch it. So they're started about 1774 as the idea comes up. Adam Weishaupt comes up with this thing called the School of Humanity, and then he quits that project, and it kind of sketches out the framework for the order. And then so he founds the Order of the Perfectibilists in 1776 with some of his students. It basically remains like a college fraternity until about 1780. And they bring in this guy, Baron Adolf von Knigge. He writes the Order's Ritual. And so they, from about 1780 on, they go from a few hundred members to about 1900 something members that are we can say for sure were members, and it probably wasn't much more than a couple hundred than that. And so this is from 1780 to 1783, and then Knigge and Weishaupt fall out in 1784. Adam Weishaupt goes into exile in 1785. So the southern half of the Illuminati in Germany are cut off, but the northern half kind of linger on without direction. And they try and reorganize a little bit from 1785 to 1792. But like we were talking about before, in the French Revolution, they wanted more of like a populist type thing, and Freemasonry at the time was seen as like a gentleman's type club, and so it fell out of disfavor with the public. And so, in a lot of places in Europe, and by 1792, Freemasonry was on a serious decline. And so that's kind of what ultimately happened to them is they got absorbed back into Freemasonry. Freemasonry didn't stop, but there wasn't a large interest in it during that time period.
Okay.
Okay. We are back.
Who knows?
Yeah. Well, it could easily be somebody trying to sabotage the revelations of the Illuminati.
That's what we'll say every time there's a technical hiccup, won't we?
Yeah, I'm gonna blame it on the New World Order every time.
That's right. They're trying to get us right now.
Okay, well, continuing the conversation, we spoke briefly about why the Illuminati is by many people considered to be an evil organization, but we know that such is not the case because the intent was to bring humanity as a whole to a higher standard, to be able to subscribe itself to moral standards and ethical standards that were generally accepted at the time. We touched briefly about the history of the Illuminati, 1770s, but the second misconception that I wanted to get to was that it was still in operations. There is a definite end to the Order of the Illuminati, correct?
Yeah, there is.
And could you tell us a little bit more about how that came about?
Yeah, sure. So I think where I probably cut off at somewhere was the Illuminati. They went along, and Adam Weishaupt kind of got discovered. There was a lot of negative stuff against them in 1785, and he flees into exile because a lot of their papers were published, and it was kind of a means of shaming them and distracting away from this land scandal that was going on. This the Bavarian elector, a guy named Karl Theodor, he got kind of caught up in a deal where he was trying to exchange land for a title of nobility in Austria, and the public caught wind of it, and so he was deflecting away from it as a means to kind of keep the public's mind off of this deal. It's like, well, hey, don't listen to me. There's this group right here, the Illuminati. Look, they're doing subversive things. Look at them. And so he flees into exile because it wasn't very popular at that point, and so the whole southern Germany gets cut off in 1785, and so the northern parts kind of go on for a little bit from probably till about 1792, and then as the French Revolution comes along, people embrace the ideals of the French Revolution, like a people's republic, and so the Freemasonry was seen as more of like an aristocratic type thing, and so it fell into decline. And it didn't go away, but so basically Freemasonry proper like that, it kind of goes on the decline, and the Illuminati just get lost somewhere in the mix, and we just lose the trail, and that's the end of them.
Yeah, which I'm sure that fuels a little bit of that that suspicion that it just fades away into history. So people view that as as evidence that it perhaps went underground, but people will read into things however they will.
Yeah, and if people will look at a lot of the different books that are out there too, you can follow the trail to like there's really one lodge that's still operating. There's two. There's Gotha and Weimar, and there's there's two lodges that are still going till about 1792, and then like it just kind of goes silent. So it just you see it like it basically contracts down into this a couple little lodges running this thing, and that's it. So that's all we have really for the Illuminati at about 1792, and then they're done.
And for those of you who are watching the live broadcast, or if you're watching the video and you have any questions or any comments about the things that we're discussing, we invite you, if you're on Twitter, find us at WindingStairs33 and use the hashtag Illuminati Rituals so that we can follow up the conversation. Clearly there's a lot of misconception out there, and we can share what we know about the order, and hopefully that will dispel some of the misconceptions. The other one that I noted down here is that they were advocating for the overthrow of the government. Was this one of the tenets or one of the intertwined beliefs that were part of this organization?
No, it's a misconception. So, like, what was going on was Adam Weishaupt, he was heavily influenced by a lot of French philosophers, right? Bonnet, Boulanger, Rousseau, people like that. And so if you read this one text, it's called, Rousseau had it was called On the Origins of Human Inequality. And basically he says in this piece that humanity starts out in an exalted state because he's primitive, right? He doesn't have a lot of needs, right? So he's truly free. He doesn't have a lot of things binding him. His concerns are shelter, a place to live, taking care of your family, you know, things like that, the basic needs and necessities. But through his needs and the development of society, people come to work together and join together and form, you know, tight-knit communities. And by doing this, people exchange powers, right? Because, you know, not everyone can farm the land and ensure security and run the society. And so it's through these associations like that. So what the main argument in the text is that humanity starts at an exalted state because they're free, because they have few needs, but through their needs and through the progression and development of society, humanity becomes enslaved, and it gives rise to things like kings and nobles, you know, different things like that. But it also talks about that the true source of power is, you know, one person being in the indispensable need of another for whatever it might be. But when another person falls in the need, so what you're seeing is it rationalizes the exchange back and forth between the balance of power over time. And so what they're arguing is through enlightenment, and by enlightenment they mean education, right? Education in science, philosophy, wisdom, virtue, morality, and the application of these knowledge or this knowledge to their lives will raise humanity up. So we started in an exalted state. We fell into you know, basically we fell into slavery, and through this education we'll raise ourselves back up. And so what they're, in respect to government, what they're saying is that we won't need a king to look over us. We won't need a father. We'll be able to govern ourselves, right? So it's important because prior to this, you know, the America was the first place really to throw off their monarchy successfully. And why shouldn't they? Because they were so far away, and you know, self-governance makes sense. And so they're inspired by these ideas, and like they write about America several times in the book. There's like 3 or 4 little mentionings of it, about the potentiality of it, right? Like what was this? Like it's the People's Republic coming on Earth. And so while he's writing all this, people are reading about it, and it looks like it's coming true. It's like, wow, the People's Republic really is coming up, and you know, man is capable of governing himself if he, you know, if he holds himself to a strict code and a strict lifestyle. And that's kind of what's going on here. And so that's when they're talking about government, they're really saying that, you know, we're not talking about overthrowing government. They're saying that man will be capable of governing himself, and these institutions will, you know, just will become irrelevant and unnecessary, and not through a violent means. And they say it several times in the text, you know, violent revolution is not what we seek. We seek to influence people to raise humanity to its its full why can't I say that word? Dignity, and and they'll basically be able to govern themselves, and that's what's going on. So it's not overthrow the government; it's you know, governing oneself and the capacity for it.
That's and that makes perfect sense. In along the same lines, you know, before we move on to the next point, the people might read into when you shine that importance into self-governance and the self-improvement, ideally, if you were able to apply that to the whole community, to the whole society, then clearly, yeah, government perhaps would be completely obsolete. But it's somewhat of an utopian belief that something like that could happen. It doesn't mean that you abandon any effort to improve individually or as a community, but to take it to the extent where everybody is absolutely capable of self-governing, making the government obsolete, it's, you know, it's not necessarily attainable.
Right, it's a utopian ideal, right? But it's kind of like anything. Like when you have a goal for something like that, say like your goal is to you know, help as many people as you can, like that. You're not going to be able to help every person, but just because you're not going to be able to help every person shouldn't limit you to not helping as many people as you can. And so it's like an object, right? It gives us something to strive for, but we also need to take in mind that it's not an attainable thing. It's just a goal, right? It's just it's a concept, and that's the difference.
That's excellent. I like that. Along the same lines is the misconception that the Order of the Illuminati had as one of its goals to overthrow religion. and rid society of religion. How is there any veracity to this?
No, and that's where it gets complicated because we start seeing elements of it in the Scottish Rite degree where it starts talking about Jesus. And what is it talking about with relationship to Jesus? And they're advocating that Jesus had a secret doctrine, and that really, even to like the non-Christian, that Jesus is it could be the example of the ultimate person, like the ultimate savior of humanity, because through an application of his teachings, and they argued that he's got an esoteric teaching, but it's really not an esoteric thing. It's something that today we take for granted, that that Jesus. Remember, like where it says in the Bible, where Jesus came to, he didn't come to bring peace, but he came to bring a sword, right? And what he's talking about is like his message isn't a uniting message. It can be divisive, but not divisive like in a subversive manner. It's in a manner of attaining salvation and self-perfection, and it's through this path that we walk that ultimately brings us into conflict with other people who, for whatever reason, don't think that's such a great idea.
Yeah, don't we see that every day? Now, there is one more misconception that I found fascinating, and there will be conspiracy theories about this and parallels with other conspiracy theories, but mainly that one of the goals was global depopulation, or reducing the population of the Earth as a whole. Where does this come from, and is there any truth to it?
Okay, so the concept for this, I think Alex Jones put out a film. We called it Endgame, and he was talking about global depopulation, and it's it's the plan. The elite are going to do this, and they're going to do it through all these different means and methods, and that's totally something else. But he also like harps on the Illuminati this, the Illuminati that, and so that's why the idea floats around out there. But the interesting part about it is when you actually read the ritual text. Remember, we were talking about just a minute ago. Rousseau's On the Origin of Human Inequality, right? Mm. Well, that concept's in it's in the priest degree, this thing called the Lesson in the First Chamber. Well, it gets expounded upon in the Rex degree, the top degree in the system, and he takes it one step even further, and they basically go into that, not only is mankind going to be raised up to this exalted state, that all these things are going to happen, but that it's a part and it's a system of nature, and God has it encoded into nature itself like that the actual system and the mechanism of this world will lead to this state. So it's a natural progression of things to start out exalted, to fall to a lower state, and to be raised back up. And so just like we said, through the application of morality, wisdom, and virtue, the knowledge of it and the application of it to one's life, we'll come to find out that also through the increase of population, right? Because it's when there's a scarce population, and he argues this in the piece, that when there's times of scarcity of population, that's when despots rise up, right? Because they need someone to organize and control.
Can you still hear me, brother? All right, we had another interjection by the New World Order, dark forces of the Illuminati. We've had a little bit of technical difficulties on and off. If we cannot hear Brother Wäges in the next few minutes, we will continue to bring more content regarding the Illuminati on another date. In the meantime, I wanted to let you know, Brother Wäges had the generosity of offering a free copy of his book, and we're doing a raffle. So if you go to facebook.com/The Winding Stairs, you will find there a link where you can actually vote. From now until the 24th at midnight, you'll have an opportunity to enter several times. There's no purchase necessary, but you'll have an opportunity to enter to receive a personalized copy of Brother Wäges' book. And I can see that we have Brother Wäges back on.
Yeah, apparently my computer decided it was a good time to go to sleep for some reason.
There's an evil hand in this.
If they're going to get us, they're out to get us. I'm sorry.
We will finish this interview. Well, I was just telling the viewers that you were very generous, and we thank you very much for offering a personalized copy of the book. Again, the title of the book is The Secret School of Wisdom, The Authentic Rituals and Doctrine of the Illuminati. And Brother Wäges, we talked about the Rex degree. We talked a little bit about the priest degree. You, for those listening, you can learn a lot more about everything that's entailed within the rituals of this defunct organization when you get the book. And I wanted to ask you, within the book itself, there are several illustrations to support some of the things that you present. Could you give us an idea of what types of illustrations the people can find in the book?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So in every manuscript, or not every manuscript, but most of the manuscripts, there's the ritual texts have like examples of what's in there. So what you'll find in the book is you'll find in every all the best rituals from all the best images from the best manuscripts. We've included these images, and there's different variations of it. And I've actually collected quite a number of the variations of the different ones. And so you'll see things like the seal for the Minerval jewel that's actually drawn in there. You'll see the Minerval carpets. You'll see the Freemasonic lodge carpets. You'll see different pieces of regalia. And you'll also have like ciphers and things that are also in the text too. So I mean, it's literally as the text appears, all the things in the right spots. It's literally like it's a total, like a perfect reproduction of like the best ritual book that could ever be. So it's kind of like a blending of all the best manuscripts. And so what you get is like the best copy.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And I'm hoping that everybody that listens to this gets a copy, and gets to get a more privileged look at what this order was about and some of these illustrations. Another thing that Josef Wäges did for the listeners of the Winding Stairs is that he'll be able to provide some exclusive scans of some of these manuscripts, of some of these pages of the manuscripts, and we're going to make those available to you if you go to thewindingstairs.com/secret wisdom. Am I right about that?
The Secret School of Wisdom?
Yeah, let me see here. I want to give you the right link so that you don't miss out on this. Secret School. When you go to thewindingstairs.com/secret school, you'll get a chance to get a link to where you can see some of these illustrations. Clearly, we encourage you to get the book, but will they find in this set of images that are not in the book?
Oh yeah, that's why I put it in here. So they'll have access to some of the variations, and some of them are really cool, some of them are interesting, and then some of them are just like whoever was doing the manuscript apparently wasn't very good at drawing, so some of them are kind of rougher than others, some of them are better than others, and so what you get kind of a feel for is just the variations that exist that are out there. And so it's the same way with the handwriting too. Like that's why it was such a tedious deal, because some people had really great copying handwriting and other people didn't, and you can guess which ones which ones were the ones we kept.
That's excellent. But there's one thing that I really like about it, and I've seen most of the illustrations that you'll be able to get by going to that link, and some of these really give you that feeling that you are looking at the actual pages where
you are actually
where the man has illustrated or actually written, or it's almost like that connection, not to just a text that's written. Like this is the actual product of a man's hand and brain. So you're having this connection with someone who, back in the 1770s, was conceptualizing an order that would keep us talking about them, hundreds of years later. I think that's fascinating. So again, since I stepped all over that that link, thewindingstairs.com/secret school, and you can put your email there, and you'll be able to download those images. There's so much we could be talking about with this. I wish that we'll have an opportunity to speak a little bit more later.
Oh, sure. Anytime you want it, man.
There's one thing that I'm very curious in your access to all these sources of the Order of the Illuminati. Have you noticed any parallels of the Illuminati and Freemasonry as we know it today?
Oh, totally. So, like, we'll just even from like the symbolic degrees, right? Let's look at those and talk about those for a second. So the symbolic degrees in the Illuminati system, they took it basically a full ritual book from this lodge called Zionite, the Unity Lodge in Frankfurt, and they basically took the whole system, rearranged the catechism questions. They only put one obligation in the entered apprentice degree. There's no obligations in fellowcraft or master. The lectures are, for the most part, the standard ones that were going on back then, and the floor work of the lodge, it resembles a lot the strict observance system. And so when we look at it today, like what's close to it, the rectified Scottish Rite is very close to it, like what they work in Germany and in France. And the reason is because they were both heavily influenced and came out of the strict observance. So these are the reason why they're so similar is they come at the same time period that the strict observance is falling. And so people are taking what's familiar with them, right, and starting there from that point. And then so what you see is like a tree with like two little trunks that kind of branch off to the sides. And so they both come from a same source. And so the rectified Scottish Rite today, it's different now. They have a few different things inside of it, but the main form and function and the way the lodge is set up, it's very close to it.
And are there any things where they really differ, where Freemasonry is either not compatible with the teachings or beliefs contained within the Illuminati, or is there not something as contrasting in it?
Well, what was interesting is like when they decided to start merging Freemasonry and the Illuminati, like the first three degrees, the novice degree, the Minerval degree, and the Illuminatus minor degree, they wanted to merge it with entered apprentice, fellowcraft, and master mason. Well, that's what they wanted to do, but the thing is that it was never going to happen because it wasn't a good fit. They really weren't compatible. And in truth be told, a lot of the requirements for being a Freemason were less stringent than what they were imposing on the lower part of the system. And so one of the remedies around this was that Adam Weishaupt promoted like rapid advancement in Freemasonry. And so they would do like 3 degrees in 3 days in some instances, and with their system. And so it was basically they kind of go right through the Masonic degrees, and then you'd be a Master Mason, and then only a few Master Masons would be selected to go up to the Scottish degrees, and that was kind of their means of filtering Freemasons that wanted to join their system and to go further. So they kind of like, in a way, they were using Freemasonry to spread like the idea of it, and then to use from that pool of candidates, because they're already enlightened guys, they're already good people, they're already moral, they're already upstanding. So it's kind of like a filtering mechanism, right, for recruitment. And so the best of the best of the best, they would take those guys and then advance them. And so that's what was going on. And also, like, they were using lodge finances from the symbolic degrees to kind of fund their activities too. So it was basically a kind of a snare, is what they were doing. And that's why. So the subversive activities in the Illuminati, it had nothing to do with what was going on in government. It had everything to do with what was going on in Freemasonry.
Interesting. Well, there's a twist right there, if there ever was one.
Yeah.
Now, do you have of the rituals that you talk about in the book, is there one that is your favorite?
Well, I like the lectures, like, because the ceremonies, they're very interesting. The regent ceremony is pretty cool. I tell you what, I like the Scottish Knight ceremony. Those are really good, and you guys can kind of look into that stuff. But what I really like are the lectures. The lectures to me are where the fireworks are at. And there's one like that. We were originally supposed to be in print like back in October, and then we got this new document that we went through, and basically what it is, it's an early text Adam Weishaupt wrote for, like, it's a preparation for those who are to participate in the governing of the order. And so basically it's like his instructions, like how to lead this secret society, and it's dynamite. I mean, and it's really, really good. And the thing was, it was split up there was like a partial copy of it in someone else's handwriting, and then the front end of it was the only document that's left in Adam Weishaupt's hand is this missing instruction. So that's what's crazy about the whole thing is the only thing that's still his was the first half of this other text that we didn't know what it was, and when you kind of put the two together, there was a little bit of overlap, and that was it.
Wow, that's fantastic. I can't wait to read through that now. Man, oh man. Brother Joseph, I really appreciate the time that you spent with us. Thank you for the great work you've done in shedding light about this. Thank you for putting at our disposal something that would have taken somebody over a decade, as it took you to compile. So,
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you joining us. If the viewers want to learn more about you and about the book, how can they? Where is the best place where they can find you?
Well, if they want to be my friend, they can find our fan page on Facebook. Just look the Secret School of Wisdom. It's pretty easy to find there. Then if you want to get personal copies or author signed copies, or even if you want to look at getting some of the regalia pieces, I've kind of reproduced some of them because it's real interesting because the only thing that really survives is that Minerval jewel, but we have the illustrations of the other regalia, and so we were able to reproduce it. And I've got more editions coming, but it's kind of neat, like for a collector's sake, like just to have some of these things sitting around and be like, you hear everyone says, that's Illuminati, no, that's Illuminati, and then you can go to my page, which is IlluminatiRegalia.com, and you can say, no, that's Illuminati.
The real kind.
That's the real deal. That's right.
That's excellent. Well, thank you very much once again, and we will continue this conversation offline. So if you're on Twitter, find Winding Stairs 33 and use the hashtag Illuminati Rituals. That will help you keep on the conversation. And on Facebook, for sure, check out what's the Facebook page again for?
Just look up the Secret School of Wisdom, and you can find it right there.
Excellent, and hopefully we'll have more conversations going out right there. So for those of you who took the time to watch this video, thank you very much. Please do me a favor, if you liked it, click on the like button. If you like this type of content, we have a lot more of it coming, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And finally, on the comment section, make sure that you also comment right there. Hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions, and if you have anything to add to the conversation, we'll love to see it there as well. And in the process, thank you again for joining us as we continue our journey up the winding stairs.